just going to welcome our employment resource consultants to the meeting today. So we have just wave when I say your name, Briar and Nick and June. And so I know that there's questions that you might wish you could ask them. So I'm going to ask questions that I know students often ask, and then they'll give you some feedback and some input that'll be helpful, I know. So one of the questions I hear all the time, students are asking if employment scams are really true. And if they are, how do I know if I'm being scammed? So
I'll answer that one.
great.
So unfortunately, this is a sad reality that we've been dealing with probably for at least the last couple of years. So a couple things. One is if it sounds too good to be true, if it happens so fast, if you don't know the name of the company and they're trolling you, whatever, it's a scam. So let me give you a good example. So let's say you have a profile on LinkedIn and someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I see that you're a student at Georgian College. I have a job for you. Chances are it's a scam. Maybe there's 1% chance that it might not be. So if this is the case, when in doubt, always find out the name of the company and then you can message your employment relations consultant, because we've dealt with most of them. If it's a company that's not paying any money, if it's unpaid, if they ask you to pay money, never, never, never do true employers accept money from students. So that's another reason it can be a scam. Sometimes you can tell it's a scam if you can't nail down where the company is. Like maybe it says the head office is in the United States, but the person messaging you is calling you from India or China or something like that. So if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And never, ever send any documentation, social insurance number, OHIP number, license, anything like that until the co-op has been approved by the employer relations consultant. A lot of people will try to get you to commit to something before we've approved it, and that's a scam. So when in doubt, hold off, talk to your employer relations consultant, and we will clarify that for you. Okay.
Does anybody else want to add anything?
No, I think that covers it.
I can certainly say that I've met students who have been taken in and lost hundreds of dollars and even thousands. So if you're not sure, please check with one of us and we will support you as best as we can. Okay, the next question students often ask is, I don't have very much work experience. How can I apply to this job? So anybody like to?
I don't mind answering that one, Beth.
Great,
so you probably see with a lot of large organizations that they will put up their desires rather than what they actually can make do with. So a lot of employers appreciate that co-op students are not necessarily going to have the qualifications that they lay out. Some qualifications may be essential. So you're going to find some employers will ask for a driver's license. And that would just be due to the nature of the position. Maybe you need to, drive a car, or maybe for insurance purposes, they need that. In other instances, you may see an employer might ask for 5 years of experience. So an example might be a bank might ask for 5 years experience. Please don't let that put you off applying for a position, because what they're really saying is that the ideal person for this position would have 5 years experience, which is not always the reality. And they know that you're still a college student, and if you can demonstrate to them that you have other abilities that will allow you to be successful, then don't be discouraged from applying for a position with any organization. So it's always better to apply and not be successful than not apply and never know whether or not you could have been successful. So that's how we'd recommend you deal with those situations.
June, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, 2 words: transferable skills. We see a lot of students that come to the college and they're in business programs or whatever. Maybe they've worked at Wendy's or Tim Hortons or whatever, and maybe they don't have specific skills that the employer is looking for, but they have transferable skills. So if you're applying to an organization that's asking for leadership skills, and although you've never officially had a job as a supervisor, but maybe you've trained people, maybe you've been a camp counselor, maybe you've been on a hockey team and been a coach or whatever, whatever. Those are transferable skills. So never discount those transferable skills because they're really important, especially fast food change, because they show that you can work under pressure. You can, you know what I mean? You can multitask, you know what I mean? Problem solve, all those things. So just transferable skills are really important.
Briar, did you want to add anything?
I don't think so. I mean, transferable skills are the biggest thing, especially if you have zero work experience. Think about, have you worked in groups on group projects? That involves a lot of communication and collaboration. So you really can brainstorm, and I'm sure Beth can help you with thinking of things that you can put on your resume
Yes, I
if
can.
you're not sure. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you might not think you have any skills, but when you really start thinking about your past experiences, you probably do.
So you heard it from them, and it's what I tell you too. So now you know we're all in cahoots to try and get you a job. Okay, so then the last question, I think I'm going to throw it out for Briar to answer first, and then the others can kick in. So Briar, some students are concerned when they start working for an employer, it's their first professional job, and they don't have experience in the field, but they got the job. Will the employer expect them just to know and just go with it and already be an expert in accounting or in health services or whatever it is that they're working in?
Definitely not. The purpose of your co-op is to put into practice the things that you've been learning in school. So your employer knows, they've seen your resume, they've done an interview with you, they'll know that you're not an expert on this topic yet. And the reason that you're doing your co-op with them is to learn those skills and grow and become an expert at some point, but they're not going to expect you to be an expert right away. So ask a lot of questions, use what you know, and you'll find that you learn throughout your co-op.
That's awesome. Anybody want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just add, you know, don't try to fake it. So just be honest and be transparent with an employer that if you don't have this specific experience that they think you may have, just be honest and be curious too when you're on a co-op. Don't be frightened to ask questions. And I would much prefer to see someone who's keen and enthusiastic about what they're doing rather than necessarily be an expert when they arrive at my doorstep. I would much prefer that they're honest and transparent and that there is that willingness to learn about something if they haven't had that exposure yet. And most of our co-op employers understand, like I said, that you are a co-op student and that you're there to learn and put into practice the studying that you've done. And it's not always transferable. Every employer is going to do things slightly differently. So you may find that you're going to learn in an academic environment about something, but the transfer of that into the workplace may be slightly different. So don't be frightened to talk to an employer about that and let them know that you know you're familiar maybe with the concept, but you're not an expert in it. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just going to go around the circle now and just ask you if you've got a tip that you'd like to share with students to help them be successful, and also how you might help a student if a student was going to reach out to you. So if you're ready to go, just go. I threw that at you without any warning.
Oh,
You'll
go
first. I can go first.
Awesome. Oh, okay. Right. Awesome.
Okay.
Go for it, Brian.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that I hear from employers a lot, and when I hear from students who have been successful in their co-op, is to really be open to those new experiences and be willing to work hard and put in a lot of effort and maintain that open communication with your supervisor and a positive attitude. And that'll take you a long way. So that's what I would suggest, is really go into it with that positive attitude, and I think that you'll get a lot out of it that way.
Awesome. And June?
Oh, thank you. Just a couple of tips. One is the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, even the month of a co-op are the toughest. And that's when we usually get a lot of calls about this is hard. I can't do this. I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's pretty normal in most circumstances. So just know that there is going to be a transition period, and definitely, if you're feeling overwhelmed or whatever, reach out to your supervisor and ourselves as your employer relations consultant. But just know that everyone experiences that the first couple weeks, and it's something that we can connect with you about and talk about. But a lot of the times after that period is done and you're feeling more comfortable, that goes away. So just something to remember. And the second tip is know your job description and know the physical location where your job's going to be, because we've had many students that accept a job in, let's say, Bracebridge, Ontario. Meanwhile, they're living in Vaughan, and in the summer it might not be a bad drive, but in the winter, not so nice. So just know the geographical location, how long it's going to take you to get there, and don't look at that as something that's going to prevent you from doing that job after you've accepted it. So those are my 2 tips.
Nick?
Yeah, my tip would just be present in the workplace. So actually show up on time, make sure that you are there for the co-op and that you're fully committed. Don't sort of spring on the employer, oh, I want a week off in July, when you've started as a co-op student. Understand that it's a full-time commitment, and that the employer is going to expect that as a co-op student, that you're looking to impress them as an employer. So ultimately, like, lots of our students go on and are hired on a full-time basis through their co-op employer. So just remember that it's like a job interview, really. The co-op position is your opportunity to interview over a long period of time and really impress on the employer why you're going to be a good fit for their organization in the future. We have small employers and we have big employers, but I would treat each one equally and with the same degree of respect, and also value the fact that they're paying you to be there. So it's not like a part-time job where sometimes maybe you're not fully committed to it because it's not what you want to do for a living, or you don't see you doing it for the rest of your life. But with a co-op opportunity, it's in a field where you're becoming an expert, or where you would like to be an expert and a professional. So treat the co-op as a professional work environment and not as a part-time job that you've just secured to pay your bills. It is really, you're supposed to be learning and advancing your career in the position.
So last question, and you can just weigh in. We don't have to, everybody doesn't have to talk. Why would a student reach out to you, and how can you meet with a student or support a student in their job search?
So a student can reach out to us anytime for any concern that they have, really. So if it's just a general question about something, my suggestion would be to email us first. Also provide us as much detail as you possibly can. So don't just email us and say, I need you to call me. Like, give us some context as to what's going on, because we do have hundreds of students in lots of different program areas that we work with. And so if there is an urgency to something that you need us to respond to, give us some context as to what has happened, or let us know that. And then it kind of means that we can respond in the right way to whatever your request is. And so that would be my advice for contacting us. And what was the other part of the question again, Beth?
Well, when students are looking for help with their co-op job search, most of the time they're going to come to me for help with their job search strategy and their resume and their cover letter. So they might approach you for support in a different way. So what would some of the things be that you might be able to help students with their job search?
So if you had a specific question about a specific type of employer, so if you're interested in working in a bank as a teller, for example, and you're kind of interested to know what is the career path of a teller, or what experience do we have of dealing with the banks, then we could answer a question like that for you and give you guidance based on an industry, rather than maybe on a specific employer. If you had that question, have we ever worked with an employer? We could answer that question for you. And if we haven't, we could say no, but we've worked with this employer who is in a similar situation, or is in a similar industry. And so it's that kind of higher level questions about industries and employers and labour market that we could definitely guide you on, especially as well around geographic location, because obviously depending on the program you're in, we may not have employers locally in Barry that would be in the field that you're studying or that you're interested in. So if you had a question about where those employers would be, then we could guide you on that, the sort of labour market conditions and sort of the demographics of where employers are located too.
That's great. Well, thanks to all of you for your time today. I'm sure the students will find it really helpful.